Dubai, debris from an attack fell near Jebel Ali port, disrupting energy and logistics operations. In the Gulf of Oman, a projectile hit an oil tanker transporting crude, while another tanker caught fire after an attack in the Strait of Hormuz. Abdulaziz Al-Ghashian in Riyadh, are we in a new escalation phase now with Iran targeting these energy infrastructures across the region?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me, and it's good to join you and join your guests. I would say we are heading towards we're heading towards that. You know, we're heading towards some sort of escalation, and it's unfortunately taking a trajectory that's not very healthy, and it's very concerning, and it's something that I think all GCC states want to avoid. There were I think the million-dollar question that's been asked here, and I wonder if you all agree with me or not. But the million-dollar question that's been asked is really, what is the threshold of GCC states? What will it be for them to really enter into the operation and begin to attack Iran? And I think to be honest, will be very much of an assessment. Secondly, I think it will also be depending on two variables. One variable will be the duration of the war in itself, which today, listening to Donald Trump and the Secretary of War, the duration seems to be going on for some weeks, which is concerning, which means that these operations will continue. Secondly, I think the intensity of these operations by Iran to attack this infrastructure is another concern. These things seem to be increasing. We just don't know. However, I think if these operations are going to increase, then we're going to see a sort of GCC forward defense, some sort of operation where they will go and will try to assert deterrence and try to basically signal and create a precedent of defense that if Iran, since all these things that I think the Iranian regime is doing is signaling some sort of precedence that they will take action if they are hit. We, the GCC, also have to create some sort of precedence that this cannot be tolerated. So I think this is the discussion and the dilemma that we're facing now.
Let's bring in Paul Musgrave. What do you make of what Abdulaziz said there? And what do you ask an
From present-day Africa on film to Berlin's history on foot, to close out Black
diplomatic efforts, but taking a direct role in this war would breach yet another red line. And I think that's something that people would be very, very cautious about.
Faisal, your thoughts. What is the red line for Gulf states, and how do they respond to Iranian attacks? I mean, they have to, at some point, defend themselves, right? But how do they defend themselves without directly getting involved into the conflict?
It's not our war. This is not our war. This is Israel and Iran war and the United States. And I think even between Israel and the United States, they have a different objective. Netanyahu is another guy who lives in a bubble, who has a philosophy of Israel the Grand, and he has his own going from war to war and creating. He is as the Iranian part of this chaos. The U.S., I think, and the Gulf share this nuclear weapon, and I think if you go back to the Omani deal, it's better than Obama. The Gulf shared the dialogue and peace. We are not into war. 50 years of chaos in this region. Iran can be better. They have oil, they have gas. I mean, they should go back to reality. That's what
Qatar has been a key mediator in the talks and a key mediator in this region. Are there, Faisal, lines of communication open right now between the Iranians and Qatar? And is there still hope to de-escalate as far as the Qataris?
I think after this plain diplomacy is always open. I'm not an official, but I know going back, we seen the bad side from Israel and Iran, right, in Qatar here. The problem that each time we reach to a deal, which was, historical wise, and Hamas, Qatar have stopped the 12 days war. I think the gate of diplomacy is open. The GCC, there are 6 countries, they share the same objective. And I think it is possible. It is possible.
Abdulaziz, do you agree with that? Are the gates of diplomacy still open as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned?
Well, I think when it comes to, firstly, I just want to say before I answer that question, I agree with a great deal of what was said before. I think what the Saudis and the ruling elites in the Gulf monarchies have in their advantage is wisdom, forbearance, and restraint. And I think this is going to be exercised to the maximum. I think when it comes to the open door diplomacy or the diplomacy, I think diplomacy, we have seen in the region that it is essential tool of security, not necessarily out of love and not necessarily out of just trying to really seek out as any kind of normative approach, but diplomacy, and this rapprochement that preceded this, the era that we're finding ourselves in now, was really motivated by security. So I think that will not change. What I do think will change will be the mode of diplomacy. I think before there was a diplomatic rapprochement, at least from the Saudi perspective, of really engaging Iran and knowing that Iran, trying to accommodate some of the security anxieties that Iran had. Now, I think Saudi Arabia invested a great deal of effort and energy in that process, a process really that one can say was akin to a psychologist treating some sort of patient with severe anxiety disorder. It was a very meticulous process. But I think now this whole and the United States.
Indeed.
This is why they were lobbying hard before not to do this.
Right.
So right now, I think there's going to be a posture that's going to be more geared, or diplomacy that's going to be more geared towards de-escalation, keeping threats at bay, but also an international diplomacy that's going to try to galvanize people, isolate Iran diplomatically, or apply pressure on it, but also increase its posture in the region. And I think personally, we are heading towards a gradual militarization, because the assertion of deterrence is not going to be via alliances. I think it's going to be via capabilities. And I think this is where we're heading now.
Gentlemen, I want to play you a short soundbite of President Trump, who spoke a little while ago for the first time since the U.S.-Israeli operation against Iran began. He says that the U.S. plans for Iran were ahead of schedule. Let's take a listen.
Somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly, after that he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour, so we're ahead of schedule there.
Paul Musgrave, did you get a sense from President Trump there that he had a clear game plan, a longer-term plan?
No, I don't think he does. Over the course of the day, from President Trump, from Defense Secretary Hegseth, we've seen the United States open the door to potentially having boots on the ground, which initially was something the United States would not happen. The timeline has lengthened from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, maybe 5. President Trump has said that the greatest strikes are ahead of us, and he offered several different rationales for what's going on, from the nuclear program to sinking the Iranian Navy. This does not say to me there's a single plan.
Do Gulf countries have the leverage with the Trump administration right now to tell him basically, you need to hold the brakes here, we need to reassess the situation? Do they have enough leverage at this point?
I think that the Gulf states have a lot of leverage. I don't think that anyone has the leverage to stop the United States right now. Stopping this would be difficult politically for the president. What they can do is incline the United States to do certain things instead of others, to build a coalition, to maybe change the targeting set, change the order of those priorities. Because one of the things that we living here in the Gulf have realized is that Iran's conventional capabilities are pretty fierce on themselves, and moving towards something that degrades those capabilities might be in the interests of the people living here, and also might push toward a ceasefire or an acceptable outcome for all parties.
All right, Faisal, what leverage do Gulf countries, does a country like Qatar have today to de-escalate the situation?
The North Field. North Field, the stop of the North Field, it became
This is a gas pipeline that Iran and Qatar share, of course.
It fueled Japan, it fueled China. It's already creating a world crisis. This field, and also Ras al-Nur, this never happened since 1973. Are the U.S. is ready to push it for 90 days? To increase, and with the inflation we have, I don't think Netanyahu will supply some gas to the world. So this is a very, very critical moment. Secondly, I think things to watch also is President Putin calling His Highness and condemning the Iranian, which is the biggest ally of Iran.
Indeed.
So those two things, I think, can change the reality and change the schedule. Or,
all right, Abdulaziz Al-Ghashan in Riyadh, your final thought. What leverage do Gulf countries have today to de-escalate this situation, and can it be de-escalated?
In my opinion, and I'll make this very brief, I think the leverage that the Gulf states have is really trying to leverage their ability to invest in the United States, their financial leverage, to be
about what they call self-defense. It's all about survival. Frank?
I agree. I mean, it's all about eventually getting an off-ramp, but right now they are beating their chest, both sides, saying, we're only just getting started. We've got some big, nasty weapons, and you ain't seen nothing yet. That's what they're saying.
Okay. Frank Gardner, our security correspondent, Lise Doucette, our chief international correspondent. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you very much for answering that range of questions. So many of those questions coming in, trying to understand the situation in Iran. And do stay with us here on BBC News as we continue to report in detail with our correspondents around the world on this evolving story.
Hello. For some places, there's some pleasant spring sunshine out there today. Not everywhere. We have got a little bit more.
52 people, including a senior Hezbollah official. At least 151 people were injured. There have also been Israeli strikes across southern Lebanon. The Israeli army says it targeted more than 70 Hezbollah facilities, including weapon storage facilities. Israel says the attacks are in response to the rockets and drones Hezbollah fired into Israel early on Monday. The group says its attack was in response to the assassination of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. After the strikes, Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam says he has banned all Hezbollah military and security activities. Al Jazeera's Zina Khodr was reporting from Beirut when some of those Israeli strikes hit the capital.
Well, we just saw that strike come in. The Israeli army has threatened to carry out a series of airstrikes in numerous areas across Lebanon, singling out, for example, every branch of Qard al-Hassan. This is a financial institution belonging to Hezbollah, saying that they will target all their branches across the country. Behind me, you see the smoke. This is Beirut's southern suburbs, a cluster of neighborhoods which is now largely empty. Since the early hours of the morning, the hundreds of thousands of residents who live in this area have left. We've seen, there's another strike. Let's see where. Yes, Israel really keeping up this pressure, promising, saying that it is launching an offensive against Hezbollah, expecting a few days of fighting, saying that it intends to intensify the strikes, increase the strikes, and promising Hezbollah that it will pay the price for firing a barrage of rockets across the border in the early hours of the morning in retaliation for the killing of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. So Israel stepping up its military campaign, threatening to target many areas. When they issue these evacuation orders, basically what it means is that it is causing mass displacement, further displacement, forcing families to make way to safer areas. And this in itself is pressure.
18:30 GMT, 9:30 p.m. in Doha. If you're just joining us, you're watching Al Jazeera's continuing coverage of the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran. A reminder of the latest developments. U.S. President Donald Trump has said the Iran operation is likely to last about 4 weeks, but the U.S. will do whatever it takes to destroy Iran's missile capacity. He said his objective is to ensure that Iran never develops nuclear weapons. Tehran has targeted energy infrastructure in Gulf states, triggering a surge in global gas and oil prices. Qatar's state-owned petroleum company has halted all production of liquefied natural gas, LNG, after attacks on 2 of its facilities. Across the border in Saudi Arabia, the kingdom has shut its biggest domestic oil refinery as a precautionary measure. 2 drones targeted Aramco's Ras Tanura facility, but were intercepted. And Iran has targeted sites across Israel. The Israeli military says missiles were intercepted above West Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Eilat. At least 10 people have been killed since Saturday. And Israel has launched new strikes on Lebanon's capital, Beirut. It says they are in response to the rockets and drones Hezbollah fired into Israeli territory earlier on Monday. The group says its attack was in response to the assassination of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Let's get an update from our correspondents in Beirut and Ramallah. Let's go first to Noor O'Day in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. So, Noor, missiles are going on in both ways. Israel is also under fire. Bring us up to speed with what's been happening there.
Well, Foley, Israel is under fire from Iranian missiles. There were also drones reportedly that came from Lebanon. Israel announcing that it will expand its war fronts to Lebanon to crush Hezbollah, in the words of senior Israeli officials. The war on Hezbollah, according to those officials, will continue as long as it takes. The war on Iran will continue for weeks, and the state of emergency has been extended. Now, Israeli towns across Israel and across the occupied West Bank in illegal Israeli settlements, Israelis have had to go to the shelter repeatedly today. The most of the areas that were impacted were coastal. The pictures that we were allowed to see by the Israeli military censor came from Ashkelon, where more than 24 Israelis were injured. Only one was described in moderate condition. Overall, in the past 3 days, about 900 Israelis were treated by medical services, but a much smaller number of them remain in hospital receiving treatment.
Noor, thank you for the updates. Let's now go to Heidi Pett in Beirut. Heidi, there have been more strikes on Lebanon's capital this evening.
Yeah, there was another wave of strikes a short while ago targeting Lebanon's capital. We heard it across Beirut. These are significant explosions. They're heard not just in Dahia, the suburbs in the south of the capital that are being directly targeted, but the windows and the ground are shaking across the capital tonight. And of course, there were multiple waves of strikes today as well. Israel said that it was targeting Qar al-Hassan, which is a Lebanese financial institution linked to Hezbollah, but which also many people here use as a bank for loans and their personal financing. So the latest update that we have for the strikes that have hit across Lebanon today coming from the government is that 52 people have been killed and 154 injured. There are thousands of people displaced. You can see them around downtown Beirut, people who fled Dahia, and also some people who've actually made it up from the strikes, fleeing southern Lebanon as well. They're sleeping on the Corniche and around Martyrs Square, but they're also making their way to shelters which have been opened in schools, because many of the schools in Beirut are closed today, and they're now sheltering the thousands of displaced people.
Heidi Pett in Beirut, thank you. Mohammed Val, what's the latest from where you are in Tehran?
Fully, we don't have any new reports about bombardments, but that's just for the last couple of hours. 24 hours before that, continuously bombardment happened here in Tehran and also in other cities. Here in Tehran, we have seen pictures of damage in the streets, civilian areas and so on, cars destroyed and even bodies in the street. The government here talking about the increasing number of civilians being killed, 175 people, all of them students according to the Ministry of Education. That's over the last couple of days, most of them in that school in Minab. But also here, scores of people reportedly killed in Tehran in different areas, including in the Nilofar, Square in Tehran. 9 hospitals have been hit with damage there inflicted on civilians. And at the same time, we have reports of bombardment on the city of Isfahan, particularly near or at the nuclear sites there, which is a dangerous situation there, considering the probability of hitting some of those components of the nuclear sites there and so on. But at the same time, also Iran is defiant, and it's talking about strikes across the region, including even on an allied tanker called Athenova that has been hit by 2 drones in the Strait of Hormuz, and it is still burning there, according to Iranian sources. Interesting line from Tasnim news agency citing an informed source in the Iranian government saying that Iran hasn't targeted Aramco facilities, and that also it has intelligence information that Israel has been behind that attack, and that it is also intending to attack Al Fujairah port anytime in the United Arab Emirates for the purpose of stoking more fire in this war and creating more amount of anger across the region against Iran. The Iranian President Pezeshkian has issued some orders to the government institutions saying that, you know, the country is under attack, but the country is capable of continuing to provide basic amenities and basic necessities for its people.
Okay, Mohammed,
and those institutions
let's leave it there for now. We'll check in with you later. In the meantime, we're going to take you to the Israeli military spokesman who's giving an operational update. Let's listen in.
The stability of the Iranian regime. We have targeted the primary intelligence agency of the regime. We have also targeted posts of the Revolutionary Guard Corps and all facilities of the regime. Tonight, Hezbollah launched missiles to Israel, and they will pay a heavy price for that action today. I have discussed with the Chief of Staff the northern borders. We will end this battle that will not end by striking Iran, but when Hezbollah pays the price and would be held. Our priority is to defend you all the time. As the Chief of Staff stated today in the morning, we will not end this battle before we eliminate the threat from Lebanon. During the night, the Israeli our air forces have flown over Lebanese airspace, and we have targeted Hezbollah posts and killed key leaders in Hezbollah ranks. So we have also continued a series of attacks that targeted economic facilities of Hezbollah that manages Hezbollah funds over years. Financial civil institutions in Lebanon that have been utilizing Lebanese money to support terrorist organizations. Hezbollah exploits Lebanese to support their terrorist attacks and to exacerbate the economic crisis in Lebanon. They don't defend Lebanon or Iran, but they are working to sabotaging Lebanon. Our forces in the air and in the sea continue their attacks against Lebanon. This evening, I would like to commend your steadfastness and your responsibility. Your steadfastness and your strong morale is a strong element for our success. I would like to ask you to listen to the directives by the home front that will save your lives. The military will not stop. We will continue our march forward on a multi-front war. We identify our targets and we hit strongly against our enemies. The military operations, and this will lead us to eliminating the existential threats against us. This anniversary, this ritual that passes from one generation to another, these words are very important. We need to continue to stand fast. That will pass across generations of Israeli people. Happy anniversary despite these circumstances. Thank you. To the questions. Question: what is the scale of attacks and how did it impact on Iranians' capacity or capability to attack Israel? We have launched strikes to eliminate existential threats. The missile capabilities are existential threat. We have targeted missile manufacturing facilities and to their manufacturing supply chain. The Iranians, they continue to manufacture them, and they sought to manufacture hundreds of missiles in a month. We will continue to target such facilities. Our Air Force has performed strong attacks against such facilities in collaborations with the Americans. Question: until now, the military didn't identify a clear objective of the war against Lebanon. Yesterday, Hezbollah launched missiles against Israel. They know the price. We have warned them previously, and they will pay a heavy price. That's why we will continue to attack them. Today we were with the Chief of Staff at the northern borders, and we will not back down until we meet our objectives of disarming Hezbollah or destroying Hezbollah. We'll continue until we disarm Hezbollah. Question: was there an issue in the intercepting missiles in the Beit Shemesh incident? answer. Once again, I would like to say that the military embraces the families in these difficult times. Definitely, we have launched intercepting missiles against the Iranian missiles, and this defense system has proven itself over and over again. However, we are now conducting an investigation in this regard. The home front is investigating the incident and they seek to develop their capabilities. Here, I would like to remind you that our defense systems are the best in the world. However, our citizens need to heed the home front directives. Question: will Israel expand its operations in Lebanon to include ground operation? Answer: the chief of staff was at the northern border and he inspected our brigades. He has approved our plans. We have reviewed all eventualities and courses of action to strip Hezbollah of its weapons. Question: regarding Iran's attacks against several countries in the region, how will the military deal with this situation? Recently, in the recent days, we have been saying that Iran is not a problem to Israel only, but rather a regional and international problem. They are targeting all their neighbors. They constitute a problem. In the recent years, following Abraham Accords, we are working with the countries.
That was the Israeli military spokesman.